Well, welcome into this week's edition of the Weather Hangout for us. And it's just the two of us this week, but of course we haven't been here in a while, so we want to welcome anyone back.
Hey, two is enough for a hangout, as long as it's not just one of us.
Yeah,
two is the requirement, but good to be back. Our first hangout of the month of August. Hard to believe August is already here, Matt.
Yeah, August is already here, and it seems like we got to celebrate somebody, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
So yeah, we are celebrating, while we're recording this, of course, celebrating none other than meteorologist John Burchfield's birthday.
You.
So happy birthday,
Picture
John.
perfect weather for today. Yeah,
Oh,
that sunshine, 80s, about as good as it gets. The benefits of having a summer birthday, you usually get pretty good weather.
Oh yeah, always. And as we think about it, I mean, the last time we saw a hangout, we had some crazy weather lately that's definitely caused some problems out there.
Mother Nature's been keeping us busy. We've had several tornado warnings in the last week or so, as well as a lot of heavy rain. And we're going to be recapping some of that severe weather this week. Also recapping where we stand as far as July rainfall is concerned. And also we're entering that time of year where Lake Erie is starting to warm up, Matt, and that has some impacts on our weather here.
Yeah, it definitely has some impacts. Something that we all are familiar with is the Lake Erie algae bloom. So I'll be breaking that down and some of the updates that they have come up with or came out with just in the past week or so. Yeah,
certainly good to know. And one more topic, you've probably seen a little bit of that haze in the sky once again. We've been talking about it all summer long. It's the wildfire smoke. You know, I miss those bright blue skies. You can tell that the sun's out. You can see the cumulus clouds, but it just has that kind of translucent appearance due to the smoke that's high up in the atmosphere. So we're going to talk about when that's going to ease up, what the impacts are, and what about how the air quality is affected by that as well.
Yeah, it is insane that we just can't get rid of this smoke. Of course, those wildfires are still burning in Canada, so we'll likely continue to see a lot of that smoke roll through our area, and hopefully we can probably get a stop to it as we go closer to fall and winter even.
Yeah, so we're going to answer some of those questions regarding the smoke, regarding the recap of July, and then also the algal bloom as well. But want to start things off with some videos, Matt?
Oh yeah, let's start it off right here. Speaking of some fires, we have some fire swirls that formed near firefighters on Sunday as they battled the York fire, which broke out in the Montague National Preserve in California on Saturday and crossed into Nevada on Sunday, officials said. So it kind of looks like a familiar to a tornado, but not necessarily anything severe in that case.
Yeah, those form a little differently than traditional tornadoes. Those are more land spouts or dust devil type tornadoes, but you know, seeing the combination of a tornado plus fire, as if each one wasn't scary enough on its own. You combine those two and it looks like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Fire tornado.
Not what you want to see, but certainly interesting.
Yes.
And again, those are not like our traditional thunderstorm tornadoes, but more so a land spout or a dust devil type tornado. We got another video for you. A water rescue. A man was trapped in his car in strong gushing floodwaters. This is in China, and he was rescued by firefighters while other people were evacuated from their homes in the capital. Torrential rains followed a typhoon, and according to state television CCTV on Monday, wow. That's why we urge people not to drive in floodwaters. Turn around, don't drown. Of course, typhoons, totally different to what we experience in the Midwest. But getting trapped in flooded water, it doesn't take a river or a lake for that to happen. It can happen in a foot of flood water, even in some of our streets. So certainly amazing that he was rescued. And you can see it looks like he's got some sort of grappling device there to hang on and hopefully bring that man to safety. Wow.
Yeah, wow. Really brave rescue there. Wow.
Absolutely.
Glad he's okay.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. This next one is a little bit of funny. It's so hot in some places, even the animals want to take a dip to cool down. Get a look at this. That's a bear in a hot tub. Yeah. You can see just taking an easy chilling in the water, and the homeowners eventually called the police who recorded this video. The bear scaled the wall and climbed the tree shortly after the police arrived.
So they recorded the video and then called the police like 5 minutes later.
Oh, they got to get the video first, so the bear's just kind of relaxing in the pool.
The bear's just living his best life. That's a beautiful view from that pool, and that's been my mood for much of the summer. It's been fairly warm, you know, those lazy summer days, and we've had a nice sunny stretch of weather this week. Certainly good pool weather with those August 80s in the board.
Yeah, of course. I'm enjoying the 80s. Of course, out west, even down south, dealing with triple digits for weeks on end.
Yeah, we really haven't had any extreme heat here at home. I think the big story that many folks are going to remember, Matt, is simply how rainy it's been lately. So we're going to answer that and talk about the July rainfall. But in the meantime, we got a weather fun fact.
Yep, we'll be breaking all that down just in a sec.
Well, if you looked up in the night sky over the last couple days, you may have seen the sturgeon supermoon, our first supermoon of the month of August. And that one was named by fishing tribes who caught those sturgeon fish a little more readily during the early August season. And you may have noticed a little bit of an orangish red tint. That is largely due to the wildfire smoke high up in the atmosphere. Now, if you look up in the sky, not seeing any raindrops today, but boy, did we see a lot of rain over the month of July. Now that August is here, we have the data to recap just how wet of a month it was. We logged almost half a foot of rainfall, 5.75 inches of rain, and that puts us around double of what you'd normally expect during the month of July, 2.5 inches above average. It was one of the wettest Julys on record, ranking number 12 atop the list, so not necessarily at the very top, but still it'll go down as a very wet month of July. Number 1 on the list of the most July rainfall we've ever recorded, that happened in 2006, close to 2 decades ago. Imagine 9 inches of rainfall over the course of 1 month. That looks almost more like a snowfall measurement than a rainfall amount, but July of 06 brought a considerable amount of rain. Here's the list of the wettest Julys that we have recorded on record in the Toledo area. Again, 2006 is number 1. We got a couple years from the 60s and the 50s, and then all the way back to 1896. That is when we started collecting weather data. And a more recent one, 1992, you'll notice all of these years featuring at least half a foot of rainfall. And then topping the list by a long shot is 2006 with 9.19. Again, we didn't quite make the list with just shy of half a foot of rain this month, but still an exceptionally wet July it was. Now, we do have some nice dry weather to start August. As far as our next chance for widespread rain and thunderstorms, that's still a couple of days away. That's going to come Sunday into Monday as a stronger cold front moves on through, and that front is going to be the impetus that brings us our next chance for some downpours and some thunderstorms. The WTOL 11 weather team will keep you updated on that online and on air. Now, the other big story as of late has been the Canadian wildfire smoke. We've talked about it all summer long, and it's been something that has persistently impacted our weather. As the jet stream has brought us some of that smoke from the northwest, the jet stream, again, is a conveyor belt that guides our weather, and it brings in some of that Canadian wildfire smoke. Overall, the air quality index has been mainly good. As of the most recent observations, we're seeing an AQI around 71, and that goes to show that most of the smoke is thousands of feet high up in the atmosphere. You know, this number is still a little higher than it should be, but not causing any major issues for most individuals. We're going to gradually see less hazy conditions Thursday into Friday as the winds begin to shift, and due to the southwesterly wind direction, the smoke is going to gradually move its way out to the east of Toledo. Here's a look at the hour-by-hour forecast. The brightest orange colors show you the heaviest concentrations of smoke that are going to gradually push off into eastern Ohio and Pennsylvania. And on the back side of that, as the winds turn, the blue colors, that shows you more blue in the sky. Here's the hour-by-hour forecast. Thursday, the heaviest concentrations of smoke pushing off towards Cleveland and Erie, Pennsylvania, and over northwest Ohio and southern Michigan. Still going to see a little bit of haze, but better than it was before. Friday, clearing up, the smoke is going to move off to the east. Here's what we're looking at as far as the sky conditions. Again, blue, that shows you light smoke concentrations as all of the heavier wildfire smoke moves off towards the mid-Atlantic region. Sometimes all it takes is a simple shift in the wind in order for that smoke to clear out. Now, as we head towards Sunday and Monday, those rain chances could even further diminish the smoke amounts, as the wind shift and rainfall are two of the biggest ingredients that can contribute to the lessening of the smoke. We'll continue to keep you updated on air and online on the wildfire smoke, and I'm going to have a more in-depth explanation and also where we stand as far as those Canadian wildfires coming up in my Climate Friday newsletter. You can head to WTOL.com/email for the latest on that. Matt will be back with a look at the harmful algal bloom coming up after this fun fact.
Well, of course, a lot of that rain that we typically see around average around 3.2 inches. Yeah, a lot of that rain that we saw pretty much over that, and that has caused a little bit of an update now. Algae bloom outlook for 2023. It was a smaller than average to start out, but we may see a little change in that. Of course, over the last several years, we've seen that up and down, at least as we start out in 2016, 2017, we're up a little bit. Of course, that dropped back down in 2018, and then same case in 2019, where we saw it just kind of up and down with that Lake Erie algae bloom forecast for us. Of course, the last recent years, 2021 and 2022, has been a little bit lower around average. And of course, 2023 has seen right below average for this time of year as far as that Lake Erie algae bloom. So of course, as we go throughout the next several weeks, we'll continue to keep a close eye on that as we go throughout each and every day, as we go throughout, like I said, into July, even into August. So of course, that Homer algae bloom for you. Eventually, as we look at it, that range that they did publish right around June 29th was around 2 to 4.5 on the severity index, but right now has been updated to a 4.5, even 5.5 on the severity index for this year. So that will be something to watch out for. And of course, that is due to a lot of that rainfall we have seen. So that Homer algae bloom last year's measurement marked out right around 6.8. Of course, I look at the last several years. Starting off in 2019, we did see that final severity algae bloom right around 7.3. Or 2020, it was a real low, right around 3.0. Even out in 2021, we were right around 6.0. And of course, last year was at 6.8. That's about an average, about 5.7 on the severity index scale. So you may be wondering what ingredients happens for the algae bloom to bloom actually. Of course, with more heavy precipitation, which we've seen in the past July, that has caused a lot of that nutrients to wash into the water. And of course, with that, the warming of water, so warmer temperatures, that is also a factor that we look at for the growth of some of the algae blooms. So of course, with that unhealthy cycle is the cycle that we tend to look for. That warm water enhances the blooms. And then of course, after that, we usually see a thicker bloom develop. And then after that, we see that dark algae absorbed by that heat that will, like I said, in that constant cycle just continues and continues as we go throughout the summer months. Some of those impacts that we could likely see due to that harmful algae bloom, of course, it is due to, of course, the main thing, human health, which can expose some irritation and illness. Of course, animals as well, even pets and even livestock can die with that. Of course, algae bloom has caused a little bit of a poison out there. And of course, our environment, whether it's our habitat, water quality, and our recreation, such as beaches and sands, have caused a problem for us in the past history. Of course, the risk of increasing climate change, that's what the factor will be for some freshwater harmful algae. So that warmer water definitely does boost those blooms and intensifies the nutrients runoff and feeds the bloom, which causes that algae bloom to grow throughout Lake Erie. So of course, the ingredients you need with that lake water temperature a little bit warmer this year. We're seeing it right now, right around 80 degrees in the West Basin, just out into the West Basin. Of course, at 80 degrees right here, 80. And as you go more into the eastern side of Lake Erie, that's where you got a little bit of cooler temperatures, upper 70s. But that 80-degree mark is still rather warm for this time of year. Look at that Lake Erie algae. Of course, with high precision comes high runoff. And with that, those are a few ingredients you need. Of course, with that rainfall, yeah, we've seen a lot of it in the past month of July. That's why they possibly updated that just this past month. Average, we usually see around 3 inches of rainfall. And lastly, that phosphorus load has been the third lowest this year, but of course that may change as we go throughout the August months and September months. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that as we go throughout the next several months to see if that severity index does change as we go throughout August and into September. We have more coming up, but before that, enjoy this weather fun fact. Wow.
That's some really good information on the harmful algal bloom, Matt, and it's hard to believe that Lake Erie has warmed up so drastically, but this is the time of year that occurs, and with just how shallow the western basin is, it's no surprise that those temperatures have climbed up to 80 degrees, which is pretty close to the temperature of the air itself. That's some bath water there, but some slimy, gross, and a little bit contaminated with the algae. But, you know, good to know the severity and the size of the bloom going to be close to normal, right?
Yeah, right around close to normal. And of course, if you think about it, we're entering at least the last month of meteorological fall. But if you, recap meteorological summer, that is.
I can tell where your mind is.
Yeah.
Looking forward to fall.
It's on fall already. But like, if you recap meteorological summer, it has been a crazy one. I mean, we're talking smoke, the tracking of algae blooms, the tornado outbreak that we had. Yes, it's been a crazy summer.
We've had a lot of ups and downs, and we recapped some of the heavy July rain we got, the severe weather with the downpours, and then also the Canadian wildfire smoke. And like I said earlier, I'll have more coming up in the Climate Friday newsletter on some of those extremes in the weather. But it's been smooth sailing, cruise control to start off the month of August. And looking at that 10-day forecast, it does look like we'll have a little more normalcy as we go into the new month.
Yep, sounds
hard to believe August is already here and almost back to school time. But, you know, next week we should have a little bit more of a full crew for the Hangout, but good to join you back here. Thanks for tuning in online on WTOL 11+, whatever platform this finds you at. Good to see you, and we'll catch you next week.